Have you ever been to the doctor because you're really not feeling well, your energy's low, you just not firing on all sixes like you used to, and the doctor runs a bunch of blood tests, and frustratingly, they all come back as normal. And then you're left wondering, is this all in my head? Because I sure don't feel normal right now. This is a really common scenario which I want to dive into with you today. I'm Mandy, clinical nutritionist inside the Body Reset program. And what I want to do today is I want to take you through 3 key things to understand this a little better. We're going to talk about what that normal range or that reference range actually is. We're going to talk about how that differs to the optimal range, which is something we're looking for, and then how we can use this information to formulate and personalize really targeted treatment suggestions, whether it's food, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's supplements, etc. Stuff to really get your body and energy back on your side. So what is that normal reference range for a starting point? The standard reference range is actually a statistical average, which is worked out based on a sample of people that have been to the laboratory to get blood taken at any given time, okay? So the thing here that immediately raises a little red flag is who normally goes for blood tests? People that aren't feeling that well. So unfortunately, what happens is that the sample that is used to develop the average is a sample of people that are already unwell, okay? And what they do with that sample is they work out the average, and then using scientific methods, of course, 2 standard deviations for it. So 2 points either side of that statistical average is what they call to be normal, okay? It creates what's called a bell curve. If you're underneath the bell curve, you're considered normal, okay? And about 90% of people will fall under that bell curve and be in the normal range. Now, as I was saying, the people that have gone for those blood tests, so the statistical average is developed based on people that are already probably not feeling very well, okay? So it's a little bit skewed in that sense of the word anyway. But what is also going on here is that as chronic diseases progress, as our population as a whole is slightly sicker, potentially older as well, the average is actually increasing, okay? So we're getting a broader and a broader range, which means it's becoming less and less specific to each individual. So this is a little bit of a problem right from the get-go, because a lot of people are falling into that normal range, even though they're starting to show signs of not being well, okay? And this means that things get missed and they go on too long before we actually start dealing with them. The other issue there is that the human body is not binary, okay? It's not sick or not. It's just like your car. If you're driving down the road and you hear a new rattle or a new squeak or something starts making a noise or doing something that you haven't heard before, you're not just going to keep on driving and ignore it, waiting for it to turn into something more serious. You're going to investigate what it is, because you know that it's giving you a message that something's not quite right. It's exactly the same in our body, okay? Our body actually gives us a whole lot of signs before we get to the point of dis-ease that something is not quite right. And this is where the normal range becomes really a little bit of an issue, because if we're at the top or the bottom end of that normal range, we might be trending in a direction which is leading towards more chronic illness, but we haven't picked up on it yet because, well, we're still in the normal, we're still normal. So we can take that normal range and we can have it there, as obviously that is a useful guide for acute illness and various things, but then we can also bring in what we'd call an optimal range, okay? This is taking exactly the same bloods, but looking at them through a much finer lens, okay? Where would a healthy adult person who's perfectly healthy with no symptoms of anything going on, where would their blood markers sit? And how does this person who's not feeling well compare to that, okay? So through clinical practice and science and all sorts of stuff like that, we've been able to gather more and more evidence of what is actually going to be optimal for an individual. So let's use iron, for example, or ferritin rather. Ferritin is what goes low when people end up with iron deficiency anemia, most common in menstruating females. Now, the reference range for this is something like 20 to 150, okay? Trouble is, you can feel pretty average unless you're about 50 in that reference range. So you can be normal, you might be sitting at say 21, and that would be considered normal, but actually you're really, really close to not being normal and you're really feeling quite rubbish. Okay, so it's not a you're not sick now, you are sick now. There's a whole lot that goes before that. And by looking at the optimal range, we can actually start to see which way these markers are heading. And if they are trending down, or if they are getting far to the side of what would be considered to be optimal for perfect health, then we can start moving things back in the right direction. B12 would be another one that, again, the reference range is quite broad for it. But what's optimal is actually right near the top end of that normal reference range, okay? Thyroid stimulating hormone is another one. Very, very broad reference range, very, very small optimal range in the middle of there, which is really what we're wanting to see. So this is something that we look at all the time with our clients in the program. And it's really useful information because it can tell us a whole lot about what's going on inside the body, okay? We can start to see things like nutrient deficiencies that we can address specifically with either food or supplements, okay? We start to see organ systems that are perhaps struggling and in need of a little bit of extra support. And it might be that the organ system or whatever is struggling is not yet, maybe there's showing some signs, perhaps that's why you're feeling a bit fatigued, perhaps that's why your digestive system's not quite so happy, or whatever it is, but it's not yet at the point of actually you get a diagnosis for something because you're not actually that sick yet, okay? It's just those warning signs that we need to start listening to and start paying attention to, because if we deal with it now, we can avoid potentially a whole lot of pain in the future, okay? So we do this with all of our clients in the program. Get a full round of blood tests done, have a look at those, not through the lens of the normal range, because most people are inside of that, but actually through the lens of what is optimal for humans to be healthy, and how do we get this person as close to that as possible, whether it is bringing in some specific foods or some specific nutrition structure, whether it's bringing in some specific supplements in high quality forms, etc., to meet their nutritional needs and demands. And then that can really help them to actually really make some progress, rather than kind of just blindly searching around trying to do all the things and maybe never really hitting the actual target that's appropriate or relevant to them. Okay, so if you found this interesting, and I can't give you actually specific numbers on these blood tests at the moment because it is a little bit individual, iron and stuff like that, obviously there's sort of some targets there which we've talked about, but the actual number that you might have on your blood test is kind of individual to you to some degree, and then all the other factors, whether the symptoms that you're experiencing, the diet that you're eating, the work that you do, the sleep that you're getting, your age and stage of life, these are all things that also come into determining where that optimal is for you, okay? So it's not something that I could actually just give you a sheet of all the optimal blood markers, but it's something that it's good for you for learning to understand that actually just because the blood test says you're normal doesn't necessarily mean it's normal. And you can actually look at those over time and see, maybe I am sitting right at the bottom edge of normal, or maybe I am sitting right near at the top end, or maybe I was in the middle and now I've gone to the top, or something like that. Perhaps something's changed. So this is definitely something you can look at. But if you would like a little bit more information on this, we have a useful resource which goes through a bunch of the blood tests that we request for our clients and what those markers can kind of tell us about what we might need to do to tweak and change to feel better. So if you would like access to that, please just comment blood and we can get that sent through to you. Hopefully that's helpful. Have an awesome day, guys.